Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bitcoin News Weekly Live. We got a big show ahead of us, and we are super bullish. Let's get into it. All right. So since Trump got elected last November, Bitcoin ran from $60,000 up to 100K. And since then, Bitcoin has been shaking out the weak and testing the patience of the strong. For months, OGs holding thousands of Bitcoin have been selling, happy to have held into 100K, and are now convinced that we are near the top of the 4-year cycle. Over 5.5 million Bitcoin, about 27.5% of the 19.9 million in circulation, have moved at least once at prices above $100,000. Those coins are moving out of the hands of individual whales and into the hands of convicted hodlers, institutions, and the wealth that they represent. This rotation has helped Bitcoin build one of the strongest bases in its history, sitting just a few points below its all-time high, while Twitter cries in boredom. The bears have made one final stand on October 10th, and that violent flash crash wiped out more leverage in a single day than the first 4 months of the year combined. It was the bears, and they fired it. And yet here we stand at $115,000. Right now, Bitcoin sits in a position that is statistically rare. The largest positioning rinse in crypto's history has collided with macro Goldilocks backdrop. The Trump-Xi trade deal framework is finally taking shape after 6 months of tension. Over the weekend in Malaysia, both sides confirmed major progress. Besant said that the agreement would spare China from 100% tariffs, while China's rare earth export ban will be delayed for at least a year, giving the West a crucial window to rebuild supply chains. At the same time, the Fed is preparing to end quantitative tightening while signaling rate cuts are coming, while the market is already at all-time highs. Trillions of dollars, over $7 trillion, is sitting in money market funds waiting to move back into risk. All this adds up to one thing. The world's biggest markets are turning the corner. The cloud of uncertainty that has hung over Bitcoin all year is finally lifting. And as Asia opened up last night, we saw it unfold in real time. Gold is falling, down 2.5% overnight and 8% since it peaked last Tuesday. And Bitcoin is up 6% since then. And October is officially green. The rotation is on. The torch is being passed. When gold topped in 2020, Bitcoin launched within 2 months, rising more than 400% in the following half year. We could be setting up for a similar story now. Bitcoin is the next man up. This could be the moment the world realizes that the 4-year cycle is a thing of the past. The greatest opportunities in Bitcoin do not come when it is cheap. They come when the last bear gives up and that last skeptic runs out of excuses. This is the setup that only comes once every couple of years, and now is Bitcoin's time to launch. All right, today I am very grateful to be joined by Mitchell Askew. Mitchell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Rob. Thank you for having me on the show. That was a fantastic intro. I'm excited to talk about all things Bitcoin in the markets. I've been pretty loud this year saying that I think the 4-year cycle is over, and I think we're going to start to see some vindication on that. So happy to dive into all things Bitcoin.
Cheers, man. Yes. Well, before we get started, let's dive into what you do at Blockware. You're an analyst, you write, you make videos. Talk about everybody about what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So I work for Blockware. We're a Bitcoin mining as a service company. So we help investors of all sizes, from small retail investors to large hedge funds, institutions, and public companies, get exposure to Bitcoin mining, because you can't plug a miner, an ASIC in your house anymore. It's not going to be profitable. Your electricity rate's going to be too expensive. You're not going to be able to scale like you need. And so we have data centers all across the country that we put our clients into, and we're able to get you access to low-cost power. It's a fully hands-off service. So with Bitcoin mining, you get two things. You get to stack Bitcoin at a discount, and you get major tax benefits because you can write off 100% of the cost of the miners. So we make that opportunity accessible to everyone. My specific role as an analyst is to keep my finger on the pulse of the markets, see where things are at now, see where they're going. Mining is, like I say, a niche within a niche. So Bitcoin's already difficult enough to understand. Bitcoin mining even more so. So having someone there to kind of break it all down for our clients really provides them with the insights they need to make an informed decision. So that's my role.
Nice, man. Yeah, I've been following your work for the last couple of years now. I've seen you put out some great videos, absolutely, and I love your energy. And I think that you've got a great head about you, and you're super
Thank
base.
you.
You also wrote a book, dude,
I did
about.
write a book. Yeah. Thank you. It's the book thing is kind of funny because I feel like a lot of the stuff I wrote in it, not that I disagree conceptually with it, but I would have done things a lot differently now. But I think that's a good sign that, because I'm only 25, like your thinking should evolve and improve over time. So I don't really promote the book much anymore, but I was proud that I did that.
Yeah, I mean, the title of the book, or do you want to share with the?
Yeah, so it's the conservative case for Bitcoin. So before I got into Bitcoin, I was super into kind of normie right-wing politics. I was watching Daily Wire all the time, like going to Trump rallies, like that sort of thing. And so I've always understood like that worldview. And Bitcoin makes sense for everyone because everyone wants sound money, whether you're a conservative or a liberal. But with 2024 being an election year, I felt like that was a good time to kind of make an appeal to that side of the world. And I felt like I could write a compelling case for those people, and people like my boomer parents that love America. They kind of grew up in somewhat of a different country than what we live in 2025, and so Bitcoin kind of appeals to some of those core values of conservative Americans. And with last year being an election year plus a Bitcoin bull market, I felt like that was the time to strike that crossover.
Yeah, and we did get Trump in the White House, and he claims to be the crypto president. Now that we're a year or so into his presidency, his second term, what do you think? Do you think that he's been good for Bitcoin?
In the aggregate, yes. I actually think it gets kind of understated just because of the lack of Bitcoin price action in this calendar year. So if we look like on a year over year basis, Bitcoin's up like 70%. Since Trump won, Bitcoin went from 60K to, 120K, wherever we're at right now. But I think a lot of the development we've seen is these Bitcoin treasury companies. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of these public companies felt comfortable enough to make the leap into Bitcoin after we get an explicitly pro Bitcoin administration. So I don't think that happens if Trump doesn't win. And what I'm optimistic about is over the next 4 years, the Bitcoin industry is going to make so much progress because of the regulatory tailwinds that even if a hostile administration comes in 2028, we're going to be kind of too big to fail at that point. There's not going to be much they can do to stop it, because that was one of the main criticisms from the left-wing Bitcoiners in 2024. It's like, well, even if Trump wins and he's good for Bitcoin, it's like everything he does can just be erased if an anti-Bitcoin person wins next time. I actually think we can get so big that that's not necessarily the case. So I'm pretty optimistic. And that's also one of the reasons I'm bearish on the idea of 4-year cycles, because we're seeing Trump and Besson and everything they've kind of done point towards everything they do has pointed towards the fact that they know the U.S. government is insolvent. So they tried to raise funds with tariffs. They tried to cut waste with Doge. And none of that really worked, right? Because the deficits were multiple trillions of dollars. It was pennies in the grand scheme of things. And so they're going to resort to their only real option, their only card they have left to play, which is monetary debasement. We can see in the gold price, gold is already sniffing that out. They haven't been able to organically get the market to push long-term treasury rates down. So if you look in January of this year, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said, first order business, we want the 10-year rate down. That'll stimulate the economy. That'll allow us to refinance at lower rates. That hasn't happened. They tried to scare the market into uncertainty with the tariff stuff and get rates down. None of it's worked. So what's going to happen? The Federal Reserve is going to have to step in and buy the bonds, bring down the interest rates, et cetera, et cetera. And so Bitcoin, as we know, will thrive in that environment. And I don't think, they're going to sit around, twiddling their thumbs the next 4 years because of the 4-year cycle. And we're just going to see Bitcoin not thrive in that environment. So I'm super bullish over the next 4 years.
Yeah, great explanation there. We're going to hit on a lot of those topics that you brought up through the headlines in our newsletter, as we do every week, because that is why we are here. We are here to discuss Bitcoin News Weekly. Our newsletter comes out 7 a.m. Eastern every single Monday, right to your inbox. And we give you all the biggest headlines of Bitcoin summed up so you don't have to spend your life scrolling on Twitter like we do over here. But we love it, and we love to give the information to you, concise, summed up, with our own little bit of spin on it. So what do we got here? We got you sold. Bitcoin breaks out the moment everyone turned bearish. October finally turns green as gold loses over $1 trillion in market cap and capital floods back into Bitcoin. So yeah, we got Henry, our honey badger here, Bitcoin News Weekly. Sign on up if you haven't done it yet. And we are going to jump right in. So we always start with the adoption section. And here we like to talk a little bit about the tech, the latest things that are happening in the space. And this is a pretty big deal that hasn't gotten as many headlines as you think it should. Arc Labs launches Arcade on Bitcoin mainnet in public beta, introducing VTXOs for rapid off-chain lending and trading, advancing programmable Bitcoin, and reducing reliance on bridges and wrapped assets. So have you heard about Arc and Arcade?
I actually haven't, so I'd love to be enlightened here. I know UTXOs are unspent transaction outputs. So what's a VTXO?
A virtual unspent transaction output. So yes, we have Arc Labs here, and they are finally, after 2 years, putting out Arcade in public beta. So the public beta of Arcade by Arc Labs introduces virtual transaction outputs, enabling off-chain instant lending and trading for Bitcoin without sacrificing on-chain security. So we're always looking for layer 2s, right, that allow us to transact in Bitcoin more quickly, cheaper, and ways that you can't do on main chain. So Arc Labs has launched the public beta. The project makes Bitcoin faster, programmable, and capable of supporting complex financial tools like lending, trading, and even stablecoins, all without changing Bitcoin's core or sacrificing its security. So to run this, we don't need a soft fork. We definitely don't need a hard fork. And it enables all these new layers of programmability on top of Bitcoin. So this was their announcement last week. And this clears it up a little bit more. So Arcade is the result of 2 years of continuous development based on the Arc protocol. First proposed 2 years ago. It's got big backers, Draper Associations, Axiom, Folger Ventures. And what is the innovation here? It's a new concept called VTXOs. These are off-chain representations of Bitcoin standard UTXOs, the mechanism that records who owns what on the blockchain. VTXOs allow users to send, lend, or trade Bitcoin instantly while maintaining the same level of security as on-chain transactions. So you are trading virtual UTXOs, and they are batched together and then sent on the main chain. So while Arcade began as an alternative to Lightning Network, it has evolved into something complementary. Both systems use off-chain transactions to scale Bitcoin, but Arcade's virtualized model supports more complex use cases. So through integrating things like bolts, users can move liquidity between Arcade and Lightning seamlessly. And the founder here, he says, we realized we weren't building another payment rail. Arcade supports lending protocols, trading platforms, and smart wallets directly on Bitcoin. These are applications that were previously impossible without wrapped tokens or custodial promises. So, I mean, this sounds like a dirty word in Bitcoin circles, but Ethereum, sort of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I have a somewhat contrarian take on stuff like this. I mean, I think it's interesting, and the word the part of the sentence without security risk, maybe doing a lot of heavy lifting. I'll have to dive deep or let someone smarter than me on the code side dive deep into this. I'm optimistic about these sorts of things, but I actually don't believe these kind of multiple layers or developments have that much impact on Bitcoin from a pure price perspective. So I think in order to bring more capital into the Bitcoin network, it's not going to be building, fancy tech on Bitcoin as much as it is integrating Bitcoin into the existing financial infrastructure. Like the ETFs are the most basic example of this. It allows anyone to buy Bitcoin out of their brokerage account. Simple, opens up new capital that otherwise wouldn't get into Bitcoin. I think for Bitcoin lending, I don't think it will become mainstream until it's, you can call up, Chase Bank and borrow Bitcoin or post Bitcoin as collateral and that sort of thing. So I'm personally more excited about Bitcoin entering the financial system. But as tools like this are developed and people smarter than myself, kind of go be the test dummies and see if that works, that's great too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the tech heads are pretty excited about this, particularly because it solves the problem with Lightning where you need to fund a channel. right? You need to have Bitcoin to open up a channel in order to get on the Lightning Network self-custodially. This supposedly solves that problem. So Lightning can do all the background, sending the money back and forth, and then the last mile is done by these VTXOs. So Bitcoin as a medium of exchange here in America, we don't use it as much compared to other places in the world, but I think it's an extremely important aspect of Bitcoin, and will need it. It will need to be used more as money in everyday life in order for Bitcoin to fulfill its final form and vision. So I'm excited about this. We'll see how it goes, where it leads to. But yeah, it's a big development. Another layer 2 that can complement Lightning. I mean, hard to argue with that. But again, you're right. I think in terms of price and whatnot, what's going on with the banks, we got that in the market section. So about to hit that in a second. But let's talk about what happened over this weekend over in Lugano. Plan B Network held their conference in Switzerland. Of course, it's the Bitcoin and Freedom Tech Conference over there. And it's hosted by Tether, has a big presence. You got Giacomo, Adam Back, the European Bitcoiners really showed out for this. And I think this is a video worth showing. They closed it out with this drone show. Did you see this video?
Yeah, this was epic. I mean, I would love to see something like this in person. I can only imagine like a normal person seeing this and be like, what in the world are we looking at? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right. The mid-curve meme. I mean, yeah, they really there's been Bitcoin drone shows in the past. I think this is the third one that they've done in Lugano. They might have been the first one 3 years ago to do a Bitcoin drone show. Now they're getting more and more common. Saw one in Austin last year during South by Southwest, but this one, they really integrated the memes and really took it to the next level. I mean, this is
and I honestly, maybe this is kind of mid-curve of me to have a philosophical take on memes, but I think they're an incredibly important part of Bitcoin education and Bitcoin culture. I remember when I was first getting into Bitcoin, it was a lot of the memes that kind of just made me chuckle and want to look into this more, because I'm like, I would see these pictures of Pepe the Frog or Wojak doing something, and I didn't fully understand it, but I thought it was funny. And so I did a little more digging just to kind of really understand the meme. And so hopefully, especially for Gen Z, my generation, I think the memes could be a powerful propaganda tool to get more people on the Bitcoin standard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's how you infect the minds of people easily, right? You make them laugh, you make them think, you make them stop their scroll and say, hey, what is this all about? And yeah, the memes are so important. We need some new memes, right?
Yeah.
We had so many back 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's time for some new ones. I had a conversation with Parker Lewis, and he was talking about the prime rib inflation index. That's a powerful meme that's tangible. People can see the price of meat going up every single time they go to the grocery store, and so it's we need to be thinking about the next layer of memes. We have layer 2s on Bitcoin. You think of layer 2s in terms of memes too, to spread the good word of Bitcoin.
The meat one is crazy. I mean, he every like 6 months he quote tweets his picture of the price of beef in his store, and it's way outpacing what they say the CPI inflation index is. I mean, every time he checks it, the price is up like 10 or 15%. You compound that over a couple of years. I mean, the price of beef is doubling, tripling every 4 or 5 years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's brutal. And if you don't have Bitcoin, good luck keeping up with inflation. That's why it's so important, and that's why we do this. That's what we do. We try to help people find their way out of the mess that we are all in, because they are not going to stop printing money.
Never.
And then to round out the adoption section here, we've got Rumble. They have introduced an innovative tipping feature that lets its 51 million users send tips to creators using Bitcoin or Tether. So yeah, I mean, we've seen this over on Nostr. Are you on Nostr? Do you use
So I'm actually not, and maybe I should be, but I'm pretty much a bear on Nostr in terms of adoption, because we've seen a gajillion Twitter clones, and I know they wouldn't brand themselves as that. It's like, it's an alternative system or whatever, but none of the Twitter clones have ever worked. Social media is all about network effects. The conversation is happening on X. That's where it's at. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, I feel you. We do post on Nostr via the Primal client. is Bitcoin news, but I mean, the majority of our energy does go to X because that's where all the biggest people are, right? And you have the greatest chance of getting the word out to people who aren't just in the Bitcoin echo chamber. But I bring up Nostr because they have the zapping function, right? Where you can send people Bitcoin for their content. And that really is revolutionary. And I hope it's something that spreads to other social medias. And we're finally seeing it break into more of the normie sphere. Not to say that Rumble is the most used video platform, but it is a much bigger one, right? They've got 51 million average users. And now you're going to be able to tip your favorite creators using Bitcoin and Tether. So do you use Rumble at all?
I actually do, yeah, and I'm glad to see this. So I had the chance at Nashville 2024 to have a very brief conversation with Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, and I told him, "Hey, you guys need to put Bitcoin on your balance sheet. It makes no sense for Rumble to not be as integrated with Bitcoin as possible, right? Because their entire brand is free speech. Bitcoin is freedom money; they go hand in hand. So they need to be stacking Bitcoin, and they need to do stuff like this to encourage Bitcoin transactions on their platform. I think Tether's a great partner for them because they can do Bitcoin, they can do Tether. Not a fan of the Tether Gold. I think that functionality is enabled, but so be it. But yeah, it's a great development to see, and I would like to see more kind of. I wouldn't necessarily say Rumble's a household name with the broader world, but definitely within kind of the niche, younger, internet savvy crowd, Rumble is a household name. So the more household names that we can see push Bitcoin adoption, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Tether bought a big stake of Rumble, right? I think they invested over $500 million maybe in the
Right.
company. So they have a vested interest in seeing this succeed.
And
And
Cantor Fitzgerald is heavily involved as well. I know they helped Rumble go public with their SPAC a few years ago. And we obviously know they're right in the belly of the beast, the entire financial system. So they've got skin in the game here as well. Rumble, I think, is going to be a key player in the world over the next 10 years or so.
yeah, and Tether is pushing out their wallet development kit. So I think Rumble is going to have a specific wallet for their platform. So it's super simple to send Bitcoin over Lightning to the creators, tip them instantaneously for their content that they are creating during live streams or just an interview or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think it's super good for adoption and Bitcoin in general. Love to see it just being more just everywhere, right? It's just Bitcoin in everyday life. It's beautiful to see, and it helps the average person, and that's what we do here. So
yeah, it's amazing how quickly you can get rid of the Bitcoin can't be used for payments FUD by just integrating the Lightning Network into certain things. It's like actually the only barrier to Bitcoin being used as a medium of exchange is the onus of merchants willing to accept Bitcoin. I will happily spend Bitcoin anywhere I can if the merchant accepts it. It's really not. People always frame it as like I would rather hold my Bitcoin than spend my Bitcoin. It's like if you're spending fiat, the opportunity cost is buying Bitcoin. It's like you can just buy some Bitcoin and send that Bitcoin to merchants and reward them in the marketplace for accepting Bitcoin as a payment. Heck, I will go out of my way to buy things that I otherwise wouldn't buy just because I want to support the merchant that accepts Bitcoin. It opens up for any merchant, no matter what good or service you're selling. It allows you to tap into a niche growing market that's becoming wealthier because Bitcoin's up 70% a year. If you can really frame your business for those people, that's strategically, it's kind of a no-lose situation to accept Bitcoin.
100%. I enjoy spending Bitcoin at local merchants or people that I know. It's super fun, and I mean, you got to be well versed with your Bitcoin, right? You got to know how to send There's so many people who have never sent a transaction before, who say that they're Bitcoiners or own Bitcoin, but they've never paid for anything with it. It's kind of crazy. But I know you've been off grid a little bit for the last 2 weeks. Did you see the headlines about Square?
I did not. Yeah, what's going on with Square?
Yeah, so Jack Dorsey's company, Square, of course, they've got Cash App, they've got Block, they've got the BitKey, proto mining, but so they've got Cash App and the Square terminal, right? So barbers, coffee shops, everybody, you can go.
I did see this, yeah.
So yeah, there's 4 million merchants around the world who have Square terminals, and now they are able to accept Bitcoin, and it's seamless, and they can choose how much of the Bitcoin they want to convert into fiat or keep as Bitcoin. Right. So I really think it changes the game in terms of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
It totally does. It's ironic this news happened while I was gone because I was in Hawaii for the last 2 weeks, and everywhere you go, you're the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you're buying coffee from a food truck on the side of the highway. They all have the Square terminal. Every single place I went the entire time has one of these Square terminals, and I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, it couldn't be that hard to just like add a Bitcoin widget, could it? And that's amazing to see they've done that. I would have been spending a lot more sats than credit if that would have been the case.
Yeah, no, the merchants have to turn it on, and they have to. This is a little bit of a process, but I mean, it's available now, and so it's our duty as Bitcoiners to go out to any time you see a Square merchant, say, "Hey, do you know this is a possibility?" and try to push them to do it, especially if you're a regular. Yeah.
Whenever they spin the iPad around and ask for the tip, low key, like, "Hey, I'll give you a tip if you take it in Bitcoin."
There you go. Boom. Nice. Yes. Cool. So we will now transition over to the legal section, and there's some interesting things that happened in the last week. Starting off with Trump pardoning Binance founder CZ, calling his actions not even a crime, and saying he granted the pardon at the request of a lot of good people. So this was kind of crazy, right? You got CZ, who was actually served jail time, right? He was in jail for, I believe, 4 months or so. And it wasn't for money laundering, like Elizabeth Warren said on Twitter last week that he was in jail for. No, it was for not going through the right processes when it came to KYC AML with Binance and his exchange. And there were some shady people, including like Al Qaeda and whatnot, that used Binance to move money around. And so he served some time, but Trump last week goes out and pardons him. I have a clip right here that we can watch of Trump, because this is just so ridiculous.
Say that, are you talking about the crypto person? A lot of people say that he wasn't guilty of anything. He served 4 months in jail, and they say that he was not guilty of anything, that what he did, well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing, you fake news. Let me just tell you that he was somebody that, as I was told, I don't know him. I don't believe I've ever met him. But I've been told by a lot of support. He had a lot of support. And they said that what he did is not even a crime. It wasn't a crime, that he was persecuted by the Biden administration. And so I gave him a pardon at the request of a lot of very good people.
There's so much to unpack in that clip there. Yeah, what's your take on Trump pardoning CZ?
Well, ironically, I'm wearing my Silk Road Ross Ulbricht hoodie. And so generally I'm a fan, I obviously pardon Ross Ulbricht. CZ, to me, it doesn't seem like he really did that much. He's offering financial freedom to the world. Whatever obfuscation between Binance US's entity and Binance. Obviously, they're the same thing, but like different, jurisdictional challenges there. I don't think the dude should be in jail. But for the love of God, I hope he does not pardon Sam Bankman-Fried. That man is a legit criminal. He's a thief. He took billions of dollars of users' funds, donated it to politicians, spent it on marketing campaigns, did all sorts of criminal activities, just have going on these drug-fueled benders and buying Bahama beach condos with it. That man's a crook. He is not in the same category as a lot of these other people. I'm not a Bitcoin Cash fan, but Roger Ver, the Tornado Cash devs, the Samurai Wallet devs, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and builders that were unjustly persecuted by the previous administration. I want all of them to be pardoned, but Sam Bankman-Fried deserves to stay locked up.
Yeah, 100% on SBF there. And we're seeing this campaign of trying to lighten up his image. And there's definitely some sort of push behind the scenes that he's making to try to get pardoned. And over on Call Sheet, I think there's like a 14% chance that he does get pardoned. Those numbers have gone up a lot in the last couple of weeks, especially with this CZ pardon. But yeah, I mean, is Binance completely on the up and up? I don't know. I think a lot of people say that they're sort of like a mafia-esque organization, and that they can definitely move markets in the ways that they want to in terms of who they list and the shorting and whatnot. But I mean, does CZ seem like that bad of a guy? No. And he was definitely one of the main targets of the anti-crypto army and Operation Choke Point 2.0. And I think it was a big head on a pike for the Biden administration to get and to show off. But now he's a free man. So hopefully he uses his power for good. He's definitely become extremely wealthy. I think he's got $50 billion or so from his time of leading Binance. And he said that he was going to step away from the whole crypto world and focus on education. But no, he's right in the thick of it. And he wants to debate Peter Schiff over Peter Schiff's idea for tokenized gold and why it is a stupid idea, which I agree with. And I think you just mentioned that before about tether gold. You don't believe
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah. I mean, we've seen for millennia now, gold, because it is a physical asset, has to be concentrated in big, massive vaults, and they issue paper claims against the gold. Nobody really, as far as I'm concerned, takes self-custody of their gold. Because if you have a large amount of it, if you have billions of dollars worth of gold, you can't do that. You're going to build your own vault. It's going to end up in a centralized custodian, and you're going to devolve to paper claims. And what have we seen time and time again is these institutions issue more claims against the gold than they have gold backing it. And so, I'm not saying Tether's committing fraud, but the inherent structure of that is susceptible to fraud in a way that Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is a transparent ledger, 21 million, no cap, or no cap meaning the Gen Z slang. There is a supply cap, but that cannot be changed. And anybody can take custody, even if you have billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So that fundamentally prevents rehypothecation over the long term, versus gold is totally susceptible to rehypothecation. If you really, really want gold, you need to take self-custody of gold, just like you should Bitcoin. So I personally wouldn't trust something like that. If you want like a digital tokenized gold, just get Bitcoin. It is a superior version of that because you can take self-custody. It's got a truly finite supply cap. You've got all this development going on. It has the upside of, an asymmetrical technology investment coupled with the debasement trade, as people call it. And gold just has the debasement trade aspect of it. So Bitcoin is 10 times better than gold and 100 times better than digital tokenized gold.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of talk of this because last week Peter Schiff was on some crypto podcast and said that he has this big idea of tokenizing gold and it's going to revolutionize finance, of course. But I also saw another thing this weekend just saying how ridiculous this is. It's like, okay, you put that gold in a vault, as you said, and then you got to hope that promise keeps, right? And somebody said, yeah, well, we'll put a camera on the gold in the vault and then you'll be sure that no one's going to take it out of there, right? I mean, it's just, that's the thing about Bitcoin. The asset is the ledger is the asset. And that means that anybody who has private keys is able to change the ledger in their own little way. And that means that you have complete ownership of it. So it's completely different than tokenized gold and the promise of gold in a vault and an electronic promise to access it. So funny things happening over in Peter Schiff land as always. But if we get back to the legal section, I just want to give a shout out to Relay, great Bitcoin only exchange over in Europe, previously only in Italy and Switzerland, but they have secured their MiCA license for France. So now they're able to offer their exchange in France for all French users. And hopefully that gives them a foothold so they can now grow across the EU, because if there's one thing that EU citizens need, it is Bitcoin. They are coming down hard with CBDCs. Christine Lagarde I think there was a vote this month. They are getting out of the preparation phase and into the actual implementation phase of the CBDC over in Europe. So European EU members, they need their Bitcoin, and hopefully Relay will help them do so now that they can spread out of just Italy and Switzerland into France and across the continent.
Yeah, that's bullish. I'm a big fan of the guys over there. I've been able to interview their CEO, Julian, once before. Great stuff they're building. I'm always rooting for Bitcoin exchanges, Bitcoin-only exchanges, that is, to rapidly grow. And it does seem pretty dastardly over on the other side of the Atlantic in terms of financial freedom. So hopefully that's not a sign of things to come here in the United States, but Europe is definitely looking like they need Bitcoin.
Yes, they do. At this juncture, I would like to give a shout out to our good friend Pam, she says, hit that like button. Yes, if you're on YouTube, you're on X, hit that repost, hit that like button, subscribe. Bitcoin News Weekly. We are here every Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, doing what we do here right now, here with Mitchell. You're a great guest, man. You really know
Thank
your
you.
stuff. And I am very excited to hop into this next section with you, which is markets. So the first topic here is whales are moving billions of Bitcoin into ETFs after July's tax-free in-kind transfer rule, with BlackRock converting over $3 billion worth of Bitcoin into IBIT shares. So this is a trend that's been happening since the summer, and it's interesting, right? If you're a whale who has held Bitcoin since it was $1, $10, $100, and we've hit this 100K milestone, it looks like they want to start integrating this wealth into the traditional finance system, and they are doing that by sending the Bitcoin to these ETFs, and they are converting it into the ETFs for them, right? This is tax-free in-kind transfers, something that was not available before, but now is. And these portfolio trades let investors swap their Bitcoin for ETF shares while retaining exposure and gaining TradFi perks like collateral use, loans, and easier estate planning. So does this surprise you, or do you think that they are selling out because they should hold on to their UTXOs and be true cypherpunks?
This does not surprise me, and BlackRock is going to do everything they possibly can to incentivize as many people as possible to give them their Bitcoin. And no, you should probably not give BlackRock your Bitcoin, but I totally understand why this product appeals to many people. You can send it in there, no tax penalty. Eventually you're going to be able to borrow against your IBIT at very competitive rates, likely a lot lower than what you could through some of these traditional Bitcoin-backed lending products. BlackRock is, if we talk about the Cantillon effect, that's them. They're about as close to the money printer as it can get. They're going to offer a pretty juicy carrot at the end of the stick to try to get as much Bitcoin under management as possible. And I would caution anybody before they send their Bitcoin into IBIT through this in-kind redemption. That being said, I think it's a great development. I think we should encourage financial institutions to build as many bridges between the Bitcoin monetary system and the traditional fiat monetary system as possible. That's how Bitcoin gets to $1 million. It doesn't get to $1 million through the cypherpunk mentality and everybody dollar cost averaging $10 a day into Bitcoin. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. We need these trillion-dollar asset managers to girth into Bitcoin, and it will happen slowly over time. They're not going to just all of a sudden overnight be full-fledged Bitcoin maxis and have all of their clients, put their entire portfolio. But over time, they're going to continue to dip their toes in a meaningful relative way. This is a sign that things are headed in the right direction. And so it's, people might not like it, but you have to kind of delineate between the world you would like to see and the way the world actually is. And the way the world is TradFi holds the vast majority of the capital in the world. If you want Bitcoin to become $1 million per coin, you need to see stuff like this. So ultimately, this is bullish. But me personally, I'm going to try to keep my coins in cold storage for as long as possible.
Yeah, and I love that little rant right there. And we've got Hodling Chris over on YouTube saying, Mitchell is the guy. Yeah, Mitchell is the guy. And
Thank you, Chris.
I agree with you. I mean, Bitcoin is going to take over the world. It is going to become the world reserves neutral asset. And in the way it is going to be integrated into these systems in order to get there, right? But the main mission is what we have to look at here. And the main mission is to separate money from state. We want money and that cannot be printed at the whim of a few guys in a private room, smoking cigars and deciding what the price of money should be, right? So gold was able to do that for many years, but then failed in this modern technology world where transactions need to happen a lot faster and you're sending money back and forth very quickly. But Bitcoin can solve that, and Bitcoin can be the neutral reserve asset for the world if it does get integrated into these systems that we have now, because it's not like we're going to just stop finance and then just move over to this new system. No, they need to sort of integrate into each other.
Right. Absolutely. And this is actually a sign that Bitcoin is winning. right? People will say, oh, the Bitcoiners have given up the cypherpunk mentality. They're totally putting on the suits and giving it a TradFi, when it is totally the other way around. This is the traditional finance world capitulating to Bitcoin and adopting Bitcoin. Larry Fink, a few years back, is going on the CNBC Business, Fox Business, whatever, these mainstream media shows, and talking about Bitcoin's a scam. It's only for criminals, money laundering, blah, 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 blah. And now he's recommending Bitcoin as a portion of people's portfolios, and he's building out Bitcoin products. So Bitcoin is trending in the right direction. If we imagine hypothetically a hyper Bitcoinized world, whatever that may look like to everyone, this is something you would see along the way. You would see these institutions start to adopt Bitcoin. So we're trending in the right direction.
Yes, we are. And it's interesting. We saw this debasement trade be the talk of the town for the last couple of weeks, and gold shot up straight through 4,000 all the way to $4,400, but has now cooled off, right? And it's insane that the fact that the gold moved from 4,400 down to 4,000 means that it wiped out trillions of dollars from its market cap, right? It just shows you how big of this asset is, adding $10 trillion to its market cap in the last year. And if we just look at this chart that we put up last night, I mean, this was the big sell-off. Gold peaked last Tuesday and it sold off hard that day, and Bitcoin rocketed up. Bitcoin came back down to earth, but it has been grinding up since then, right? And so this was of last night. Since last Tuesday, Bitcoin is up 6%. Gold is minus 6%, right? So that's a 12% delta there. And very interesting to see, because it does seem as if we've had some more clarity in the world, right? In terms of the trade tensions between China and America. The Fed has signaled that they want to end quantitative tightening, and that is just one step closer to cutting rates even further, and as we unleash even more liquidity into a system that is seeing all-time highs in all the stock markets. Gold, Bitcoin's not far off. So yes, what was your thoughts when you saw gold hit these all-time highs after all-time highs, and Bitcoin sort of languishing behind it for a little bit?
I have a few thoughts. First and foremost is the higher that gold goes, the higher Bitcoin's floor goes. So over the long term, I believe Bitcoin will, at the very minimum, match gold's market cap. So when gold goes up, I don't own any gold personally, and maybe that's obviously this year that's proved to be an error, right? Gold has done very well, but I root for gold. Like, I want gold to succeed. If Bitcoin didn't exist, I would probably be a gold bug. So fundamentally, that doesn't bother me. Peter Schiff can take his short-term victory laps. I'm cool with that. So seeing gold run this year was bullish Bitcoin for me, because the higher gold goes, the higher Bitcoin's minimum, long-term price prediction for myself will go. Second, I kind of, lick your finger, hold it up in the air, feel the wind vibe analyst in me thought gold was nearing a top. I mean, I was seeing these clips of people lining up around the blocks to go to these like pawn shops and these gold bullion dealers. I'm like, all right, that's probably a sign that things are getting a little cuckoo here. But in terms of Bitcoin, one of the things I've noticed about Bitcoin price action over the last few years is Bitcoin thrives during moments of certainty, and it doesn't do well during times of uncertainty, which is ironic because Bitcoin is the most certain financial asset in the world. 21 million supply limit, 10-minute blocks, 4-year halvings, difficulty adjustments every 2016 blocks. These are things we explicitly know about Bitcoin, and there's no subjectivity. It's not up for debate. It is the most objective, least uncertain asset in the world. That being said, the market doesn't trade it like that. For example, during the banking crisis of 2023, I mean, if anything is bullish Bitcoin, it's insolvent banks going under, right? And that highlights the problem more than anything else. But even during that time, Bitcoin crashed from like 25,000 to 20,000. Bitcoin struggled during the lead up to the 2024 election. And then once we have moments of certainty, Trump winning in 2024, or the tariffs, kind of the obfuscation around there being alleviated, moments of certainty, we see Bitcoin really start to take off. And I think we're going to get more clarity for the markets. We've got the Fed. They actually cut rates recently. That was a moment of uncertainty throughout the year. Are they going to cut rates? By how much, et cetera? Seems like we're going to be on this cutting trajectory in 2026. So as markets get more clarity, especially around the question of long-term monetary debasement, then Bitcoin is going to do very, very well.
That's a great insight that, yeah, you would think that Bitcoin thrives in uncertainty, but no, it's when things are, when you see the path ahead of us, and usually that path ahead of us means more printing, right? I mean,
Right.
that's what it really, certainty comes with the money printer being turned on. That's what one thing we can be certain
That
of.
is certain to us, right? Because
Yeah.
we've done the 11th grade math, as Greg Foss coins it. I mean, the deficits are $2 trillion. 90% of the budget is military spending, Social Security, Medicare, and interest payments. They're not cutting any of that. And so to us, it is certain. And that's where the opportunity lies as investors, is we're able to buy Bitcoin because we are certain the US dollar is going to continue to be debased. The rest of the market somehow hasn't caught on to that, but they are slowly over time. And that's when you see the Bitcoin price really start to run.
Yes, and we are right on the precipice of Bitcoin starting to run, and that is why you should get some. And so I would like to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this show, Rhino Bitcoin. Rhino Bitcoin is the all-in-one Bitcoin app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Of course, on Rhino, you can buy or sell your Bitcoin instantly, and you've got a Lightning wallet, so you can send your Bitcoin anywhere in the world, just like that, right? You can, of course, take your Bitcoin off of Rhino, send it to cold storage, and if you've got a Casa multi-sig set up, you can use the Rhino app as one of your keys. You've got other options on Rhino too. You can buy gift cards and get a discount for using your Bitcoin. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon you'll be able to pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement without leaving the app. They are building the all-in-one Bitcoin financial super app. So go ahead, download it today. Be an early user of Rhino. You can download it at rhinobitcoin.com or tap the link below in the YouTube description. If you use the code Bitcoin News, one word, Bitcoin News, you'll get $10 of Bitcoin dropped right into your account for free. So right now, we feel like we are about to take off with the Bitcoin price. It's a good time to get some if you don't have any. And if you already do, you should probably get some more. So yes, go check out Rhino, rhinobitcoin.com. Thank you so much for this sponsorship of the show. And we highly recommend that you guys go and see it for yourself. And so, Mitchell, I want to talk to you next about the third part of our market section, where it was along the lines of what we were talking about before, but JP Morgan, and of course the CEO, Jamie Dimon, a big time Bitcoin hater. They really have been bending the knee this year. So they will allow institutional clients to use Bitcoin holdings as lending collateral by year end, safeguarded by a third-party custodian. So this is a big deal, right? They announced a couple of weeks ago that they would use Bitcoin ETFs as collateral for loans. But now if you're an institutional client, you can actually use Bitcoin itself in the coming months, I guess, ahead. But yeah, this is a big deal, dude.
Yeah, this is massive. And this is just as bullish as the BlackRock in-kind redemptions. You know, the normal traditional investor with, let's be honest, they have the most capital in the world. It's like old guys in suits. They're not going on, setting up a Casa multi-sig, for example. Even though I'm a huge fan of 2 or 3 multi-sig, I think it's the best way to do self-custody. They just want to go to their bank, and if they're going to get exposure to Bitcoin, that's how they're going to do it. They're going to go through the legacy rails, the legacy infrastructure that they've used their entire life. Elderly people, or just even older people, are not known for being the adopters of new technology. That won't be any different for our generation. I'm sure when I'm, 65, new stuff's gonna be coming out, and I'm like, I don't need to do all that. That's how it is for Bitcoin. And so seeing banks offer Bitcoin products is how we get Bitcoin to $1 million. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it because this stuff is incredibly bullish. That doesn't mean you have to use it. That doesn't mean you can't use a 2 or 3 multi-sig or a single key multi-sig. But this is how Bitcoin really scales in terms of price action. So super bullish to see. And also watch what Jamie Dimon does. Don't listen to what he says, because he says he's anti-Bitcoin, but he's definitely got his tentacles spread out and has some upside exposure.
Yeah, I was listening to Dave Weisenberg this morning talk about this, and he said that this is one of the most bullish things that you could imagine, right? He was in the markets, of course, back in the 80s. And before 1988, you could not use equity as collateral. they were separate, investment banks and regular banks, right? And so they made that change in 1988. And just look at the stock market, just like the nominal number of how the stock markets have gone up since the 80s, right? So this is extremely bullish for just average people too, because this is going to open up Bitcoin lending for regular people eventually. If you've got a couple Bitcoin and you want to buy $1 million house, right now, they're going to laugh you out of the bank if you say you want to use that Bitcoin as collateral. Soon, within the years ahead, that won't be the case. So this is a big development, and people are sleeping on it.
I think Bitcoin lending, if you just say that on its own, leaves a bad taste in many Bitcoiners' mouth. Understandably so, because there have been a bunch of disastrous Bitcoin lending products in the past, and many people that do Bitcoin lending the wrong way. They are severely under collateralized and they're susceptible to margin calls when Bitcoin's price goes through periods of volatility like it's done recently. But collateral is how the financial system is really built, right? And this is how wealthy people become even wealthier. They don't sell their assets, they borrow against them. If you can take, 10 Bitcoin worth $1 million and you borrow 250K for whatever reason, as long as your interest rate is less than the rate that Bitcoin appreciates over the long term, which Bitcoin has, gone up 25 to 50% per year on average, you're not going to get interest rate, in that range. Get as low of an interest rate as you can. But as long as the delta between the Bitcoin price growth and your interest rate is positive, then it makes total sense to borrow in the dying currency and purchase a hard asset like Bitcoin or a Bitcoin miner to accumulate Bitcoin, right? This is what the wealthiest people have always done. They don't sell, they borrow against their hard asset. And this allows them to ride the quote unquote debasement trade even more because they're short the weak currency and long hard assets. So this is, something great to see. And I think Bitcoin, I don't think this is objective. Bitcoin's volatility has gone down dramatically since the creation of the ETFs in January 2024. It's still volatile relative to traditional assets like stocks and bonds and gold, but relative to the Bitcoin of 2009 to 2023, Bitcoin's far less volatile now. And so I think that makes it a lot safer to borrow against Bitcoin, especially if you can get longer terms, minimum 2 years, but 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the longer you can stretch that out, then the better off you're going to be. Borrow against Bitcoin, buy hard assets, or just, use that to fund your lifestyle rather than selling the Bitcoin and taking the tax penalty that comes with that.
Yeah. What's the borrow something then die?
Yeah. Borrow die, I think it is.
And then you don't need to ever sell your Bitcoin, right? That's the way to do it. But yes, we are getting integrated into the traditional financial system. But again, Bitcoin leaves you with the option to be self-sovereign. You can store your Bitcoin in any way that you want, and you can have it be completely your responsibility and not have to deal anything with Jamie Dimon or JP Morgan, and you can still be on the Bitcoin network. So we're got about 10 minutes or so left, and there's two stories I'd like to hit with you. One is about this solo miner. A solo Bitcoin miner using an Umbrel server earned substantial rewards after independently confirming block 920,440 via public pool. So yes, a solo miner hit a block worth 3.125 Bitcoin, right? And I mean, this was his setup. He had a bunch of these look like nerd axes, I guess. So yeah, these are a little bit more souped up than your average 1 terahash bit axe that you would sit on your desk. This he's obviously mining at home. This is a little bit more of a complicated setup than your average home bit axe miner, but this is unbelievable. I mean, you're into Bitcoin mining, of course. You know the odds that are stacked against you to find a block. How cool is it that someone could actually be running this in their own home and find a fresh 3.125 Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's epic. I'm really happy for that person. I don't know why they posted it on Reddit. If I hit a 3.125 Bitcoin, I would not be telling a soul. But it, good for them. I will say the odds are very, very low of this happening. It is you're pretty much better off buying a lottery ticket if your goal is to hit a massive sum of wealth. You can mine from home, quote unquote, with Blockware. So what we do is we allow you to buy Bitcoin miners that are run at one of our facilities. It's it's not hands-on like this guy. That's a lot of work and technical know-how to be able to set all that up, and not to mention the power costs that he's going to be drawing on the very slim odds that he hits a block to make up for that. You can get exposure to Bitcoin mining still in 2025 without having to do all the legwork yourself and get a more consistent stream of revenue. That's the way I like to mine Bitcoin. Is I connect to the Blockware pool, and every day I'm acquiring sats at a discount. On top of that, getting the tax write-off that comes with Bitcoin mining. So one of the greatest things to come out of this administration is the 100% bonus depreciation on Bitcoin miners. So you can buy $100,000 of Bitcoin mining hardware, and you can write off $100,000 of W-2 income or business income. So it really lowers the hurdle rate. You give the government less money, and you're stacking Bitcoin at a discount. It's a great option for a lot of people. And so that's personally the way I like to mine Bitcoin, is with Blockware.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's Bitcoin mining is a lot of fun. It's a very interesting science project if you do it on your own, but it's also a great way, especially with these tax benefits, as you said. Blockware seems like a great way to do it. Before we go, I need to hear your opinion on this. Tucker Carlson came out last week and said that he's a hard no on Bitcoin, claiming it was created by the CIA, fearing it'll become a scam run by elites and politicians to tighten control over society. So this made massive waves throughout the Bitcoin community last week. But yeah, of course, at the Tucker laugh, he dismisses Bitcoin. He was a prominent figure at this year's Bitcoin conference. And the ironic thing is that he comes from a CIA family, right? His dad was the head of Voice of America. He was like pretty much America's chief propagandist during the 80s. Tucker tried out for the CIA himself, supposedly didn't get in, and then leads one of the most illustrious journalism careers in the last 40 years in America, right? And now he has the ability to sit down with presidents like Putin or Bukele or Milei at the drop of a hat. And so it seems as if he might be working for the CIA without explicitly saying so. But yeah, I mean, you've met him, right? I saw that picture with you and Tucker together.
Yeah, I did meet him, and he was very friendly, and I enjoyed getting to know him. It was a brief conversation. We talked for maybe a minute, and he was very charismatic as he is on camera. But like you alluded to, there's a lot of reasons to be susceptible of his personal background. He did try out to be in the CIA. He comes from an intelligence family. And suspiciously, he claims he didn't really know that until recently. I don't understand fully what's going on. I mean, yeah, a little bit suspicious going on. I totally agree with that. Despite my friendly interaction with him, and if he's a genuine actor and he wants to understand Bitcoin, I'd love to be the guy to have the conversation with him. He's already interviewed Michael Saylor, so he can't really get any closer to the source on Bitcoin know-how than that. So I don't know why he's saying this about Bitcoin, because he's an intelligent guy and an intelligence guy. He knows that even if the CIA created Bitcoin, it doesn't mean they can change the code. It doesn't mean they can steal people's coins. It really doesn't give them any influence over the protocol at all. In the same way, whoever discovered 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't have any influence over base 10 math protocol, or whoever created the English language, they can't control the English language protocol. It's a decentralized network. And so I don't know why he's saying this. It's unfortunate to see, because, history will look, future generations will look back on the Bitcoin thing and see who is on the right side of history. He should be promoting and encouraging Bitcoin. And that's part of the reason why I wrote the book. We talked about that at the top of the show. So I wanted to appeal to people on the right wing. It's like, hey, if you stand for freedom of speech and you stand for traditional family values, and if you love America and kind of the founding principles of this country, you should love Bitcoin. And so Tucker's audience would be primed for Bitcoin if he could articulate it in a way that made sense. Instead, he's out here spreading FUD. It's very disappointing to see.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point that it is open source software, right? You can go and look at every single line of code and verify for yourself that there is no backdoor, right? And if you did want to go and change it, you very well can. You can just copy the GitHub and make your own version of Bitcoin, and plenty of people have tried doing that. It's the network effect of this open protocol that makes it so powerful. And at the end of the day, that really does mean that it doesn't matter who created it, because we can see exactly what it is, and we know that it cannot be altered if you're on the system that you want to be. So yeah, Tucker.
And I'll add to that real quick. Tucker Carlson has done a great job at articulating the plight of young American males. He talks about, Klarna abusing people and getting them into high interest rate debts. He talks about young men not being able to find jobs in the workforce because of, too much immigration and having to compete with AI. And it's very difficult for entry level employees. He talks about the college scam that the predatory student loans and all of these problems that we are facing in our economy, high inflation, the difficulty to just purchase your first home because millions of wealthy Americans and wealthy institutions are buying up all the real estate because they can't hold the fiat. They can't save in dollars because dollars lose purchasing power. So they buy additional real estate, not to live in, but as an investment. That takes real estate off the supply and prevents young people from being able to buy their first home, right? He does a great job at talking about all of these issues. And Bitcoin is so apparently the solution to that. All of this stems from the broken monetary system. Bitcoin is a fix. And so I would love to see him really be able to go down that rabbit hole and understand all these problems he so easily recognizes. We don't have to be doomers and pessimists talking about the issues when we have a viable solution.
And many people in the past have gone from being Bitcoin haters to Bitcoin evangelists. And who knows, maybe Tucker will be on that list as well one day. Well, Mitchell, here we are at the end of the show. I want to thank you so much for taking an hour of your day and spreading your knowledge with the audience. That was really awesome, dude.
Thank you, Rob. I really enjoyed it and happy to come back on anytime.
All right. So if people want to find you or Blockware, where should they go?
Yeah, you can follow me on X at Mitchell HODL. The link to the Blockware page is in my bio there, or you can go to blockwaresolutions.com. Tell them I sent you. We can help you start mining Bitcoin today. Get 100% write-off on the hardware, stack Bitcoin at a discount. It's a great option for a lot of people.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been another edition of Bitcoin News Weekly Live. We'll be back here next Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Sign up for the newsletter. Go check out Blockware. Go follow Mitchell. And we will be back with the real, genuine Bitcoin knowledge. Thanks for tuning in.